Cash. Now we'll move to questions. Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. On the 4th of March, you told this Senate that warnings about fuel shortages were, and I quote, far-right extremist scaremongering, and that there was, and I quote, no need for Australians to be concerned. Last sitting week, you told the Senate that, and I quote, there was not a supply problem, just unusual demand behaviour. Since then, 6 fuel shipments have been cancelled. Minister Bowen has conceded that there will be bumps in supply, and some Australians are paying over $3 a litre at the Bowser. Minister, you were wrong, and Australians are now paying a very steep price for it. Will you now apologise for dismissing a real fuel crisis as far-right extremist scaremongering?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Ayres.
Well, that is an extraordinary question that just shows, I think, the total lack of self-reflection and insight that there is amongst the Liberals and Nationals and their friends in One Nation. The party that in government closed 4 out of 6 of our refineries now has wandered through and discovered the forest of sort of sovereign capability, and is discovering these new trees just for the first time. Just for the first time. The point that I made in week 1 and week 2 of this was that there are some people in Australian politics who see a national challenge and see only for themselves a partisan opportunity. That is what they see. And the thing is that they do it over and over and over again. Every time they see a challenge, no matter what it is the same behaviour that is exhibited. It is hyperventilating, hyper-partisan behaviour from those opposite, and it always ends in the same result.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. There needs to be order. Minister Ayres, please continue.
Always ends in the same result, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That is what happens. And for this government, what have we done? We have implemented minimum stockholding obligations that are the strongest in 15 years. We have empowered the ACCC to have stronger penalties on price gouging. We have appointed a Coordinator General undertaking
the time
practical
for answering
action.
has expired. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Why did the Albanese government treat the Australian people with such contempt by spending weeks denying there was a fuel crisis supply in Australia when all Australians could see that there was a problem?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Ayres.
Well, I would argue that the kind of behaviour that you have all engaged in—
Please resume your seat. Senator Orders. Senator Cash and Senator Henderson. Minister Ayres, please continue.
That kind of behaviour, that incapacity to be able to act in the national interest when there is a national challenge, that is treating Australians like mugs. And the truth is, Australians don't like being treated like mugs by the Liberals and Nationals who only focus on 2 things. One, the fact that they despise each other, and number two, a hyper-partisan response to every challenge that engages all of our interests, both internationally and here in Australia. That is all that you have been capable of. Australians are seeing through that behaviour, imported ideology, exporting jobs, Your track
Thank you,
record.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. I can tell you right now, it's not a hyper-partisan response to go into bat for the Australian people who are suffering under this government and your failure to properly manage the fuel crisis in Australia. Will you now apologise to the Australian people for your government's gross mismanagement of the fuel crisis, which they are now paying dearly for?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Ayres.
Well, President, Senator Cash just makes my case. Senator Cash just makes my case. The idea that your, when I say your, I mean your collectively, behaviour in relation to this set of national challenges is anything but contemptuous.
Please resume your seat. Senator Wong.
Point of order. Senator Cash has interjected throughout the entire set of answers, so I have left it until the last set, but I would ask if she could possibly desist.
Thank you, Senator Cash. As you know, it is my way of allowing leaders some leverage, but, Senator Cash, you have overstepped the mark, so I would ask you to listen quietly. Minister Ayres, please resume.
The truth is that a respectful and in the national interest response is precisely what this government has done. We have taken action over time, not just in the last 5 minutes, over time to increase national resilience. We have moved to appoint a Coordinator General.
Please resume your seat. Senator Henderson, you have been constantly interjecting, and now Senator McKenzie, you have joined in. Please continue, Minister Ayres.
We've undertaken all of this practical action, and the alternative of what Mr Taylor and Senator Canavan led over the miserable period that they are in government on these questions was shameful, against the national interest, and it was a hands-off-the-wheel approach that made Australia weaker.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Ciccone.
Thanks a lot, President. Happy Monday. Now, my question, President, is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Iran's recent actions in the Middle East have triggered instability and severe shocks to energy markets around the world. Minister, what is the government doing to shield Australia and household budgets from the worst of this global uncertainty?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Ciccone for the question. And as he outlines, the conflict in the Middle East is having an impact on households, on businesses, on industries and supply chains in our country. Iran is holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage, and we've seen major spikes in demand for fuel, which has pushed prices up, and we know that there are shortages in some areas as supply chains work to catch up. That is why the government is taking action, securing fuel supply for Australian industry and households, cracking down on price gouging and working to mitigate the impacts from global energy price spikes. We are focusing on stability and affordability for gas users and strengthening Australia's resilience in the face of future shocks. We've released up to 20% of diesel and fuel reserves to help deal with regional shortages, and we are making sure all fuel made here in Australia is used here and that Australian oil refineries have the certainty they need to make more fuel here. The ACCC will punish suppliers found to be ripping people off, and we have brought forward legislation to double penalties. And, as Senator Ayres referenced, the government has appointed a fuel supply task force coordinator with the appointment of Ms Anthea Harris in that role, a well-respected public servant and someone with great knowledge of the energy markets. These actions that we are taking build on almost 4 years of the work of our government, of this government, to strengthen Australia's resilience, to strengthen our international relationships and to shore up Australian economic security at a time of great uncertainty.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, first supplementary.
Thanks a lot, President. Thank you, Minister, for that response. I understand that the Minister has also been engaging with key international counterparts to help ensure that the continued flow of fuel that we need. What has been, Minister, what has been Australia's message to our international counterparts, and what have been the responses?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Ministers across the government are engaging with international counterparts, unlike some in this place who seek to make hyper-partisan observations, including the interjection just now. Some of us in this government are actually, in this parliament, are actually focused on making sure we do what we can to assure supply and to ensure the continued flow of fuel, liquid fuel and diesel shipments. Earlier today, the Prime Minister spoke with Lawrence Wong, the Prime Minister of Singapore, about our shared energy supply chain resilience and agreed a joint leader statement on energy security, and I table that statement now. In recent days, I have spoken with my counterparts in Singapore, Malaysia, the United States, the European Union, the Republic of Korea and New Zealand and India. We have agreed that the international community must keep working together to ensure critical waterways are not held hostage by the Iranian regime. We will continue working around the clock to secure our fuels.
Senator Ciccone, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Challenging international circumstances like those that we are seeing coming out of the Middle East highlight just how important it is for governments to work together calmly and in the national interest. How is the Albanese government providing that leadership, Minister, and what threatens it?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Ciccone. And the government does understand that Australians are watching the events in the Middle East and globally with great concern. And we all understand that Iran's actions have triggered severe global energy shocks. This matters to Australians. It matters to us all. But something Senator Ciccone said in his question merits repeating, which is how do we work calmly and in the national interest? Because that is the question that politicians should be addressing. And that is the way the government is dealing with this. We are calmly working through these challenges, and they are substantial challenges, to protect Australians from these shocks. What we see on the other side is again those opposite showing that the extent to which they are all about themselves. They are all about themselves. When they see any national challenge, their first thought is, how do I play politics with it?
That's
their
Minister.
first thought,
Thank
and
you,
it
Minister.
says something
the time
about
for
your
answering
ethics.
has expired. Senator McKenzie.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Despite weeks of fuel shortages impacting truckies, farmers, fishers, miners, as well as petrol stations in our regions and city suburbs going dry, the Minister for Climate Change and Energy continues to deny there is a problem.
McKenzie, I'm very sorry. Senator Shoebridge, I've called order twice and you ignored me. Come to order. Senator McKenzie, please continue. Order across the chamber. Order. This is question time. Senator Shoebridge and Senator Wong. Order. 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 Senators asking questions and ministers. Senator Shoebridge! Senator Shoebridge, I will name you. You are being incredibly disrespectful to me. I'll remind the Senate once again that senators asking questions have the right to be heard in silence. Equally, when ministers stand up, that silence continues. I'm very sorry, Senator McKenzie. Please continue.
Thank you for your protection, Madam President. Just yesterday on ABC's Insiders, the minister said, and I quote, "We've got our refineries working full pelt and not exporting any diesel or petrol. We're continuing to see our fuel supply being strong." If Australia's fuel supplies are so strong, why over the weekend were 107 petrol stations in New South Wales without diesel, impacting farmers in Farrer and beyond, and 42 stations were without a single drop of fuel?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Ayres.
Well, I think that while I'd rely upon my previous answer in relation to the overall approach, and I understand the approach that Senator McKenzie has taken to these issues, I do want to take the issues of supply in regional communities seriously in terms of my answer to this question. It does, of course, take time for new supply to work through the supply chain. 519 million litres, this is being prioritised for regional demand. And the number of petrol stations or retail outlets that are supplying agricultural businesses in particular that Senator McKenzie refers to, the government has been very purposeful and deliberately transparent about precisely what is happening in those regional communities. We know that the following actions are happening: more supply in the Riverina and into regions like Hay and Griffith, more fuel for places like Gunnedah, which had stockouts last week, more fuel for independent service in country New South Wales towns like Orange, Wellington, West Wyalong and Lake Cargelligo, extra actions in Dubbo and Albert where customers are starting planting season. All of those developments are happening because of the action that the government is undertaking and also, importantly, in cooperation with our partners in the states to make sure that the national stock holdings make their way right through the supply chain to people who need it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
The International Energy Agency has suggested Australians reduce fuel use by cutting speed limits by 10 kilometres an hour, car sharing, using public transport, staying home, restricting private car use to different days. On ABC Insiders yesterday, the Minister for Climate Change and Energy agreed with one suggestion from the IEA was a sensible thing to do. How many of the IEA's proposal does the government think are sensible, and why should Australians be urged to embrace restrictions if, as the minister claims, our fuel
Senator
supplies are
McKenzie,
strong?
your time for asking has expired. Minister Ayres.
Well, President, thanks to Senator McKenzie for that question. I, of course, watched Mr Bowen's Insiders interview just as closely as you did. And I was struck by the way that he carefully and calmly explained what it was that the government is doing here, and also did that in a way where that transparency is all about supporting public confidence. What he didn't do was engage in hyper-partisan commentary about this issue. He did his job, and our job is to make sure that those national reserves are making their way through the supply chain. I'm hoping for another question about to follow that on because there's plenty more to say.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Senator McKenzie, I can't call you for your second supplementary if you are being disorderly. Second supplementary, Senator McKenzie.
The government has so far failed to maintain supplies of petrol and diesel needed by farmers, businesses and families. Can the government advise on what date fuel supplies will be restored, such that Australians can be guaranteed when they go to their local service station there will be fuel available for sale?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Ayres.
Well, the thing about this set of challenges, Senator McKenzie, is that it requires everybody working together. It requires the kind of steps that the government has undertaken. And I can tell you in places like Texas, Queensland, that had stockouts last week, that we are, of course, supporting fuel to make its way to Texas, Queensland, not Texas, the United States, which was Mr Taylor's plan just a few years ago.
Senator McKenzie.
Order on relevance. When will the government guarantee Australians can buy fuel, given the minister assures us
Senator
the
McKenzie,
supply
you're
is on
getting
shore?
into dialogue. The minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Ayres.
I'm not sure whether it's dialogue or monologue, President, but
Senator, that's not helpful. Withdraw in the interest of the chamber, please.
But But this is
Senator
a
Ayres,
set of challenges.
Senator Ayres, in the interest of calming the chat, thank you.
Of course. This is a set of national challenges that requires Australians to work together. That is the kind of leadership that the government is providing in this instance and in every other instance where there is a set of national challenges. It would be good if the Liberals and Nationals signed up to Team Australia and actually behaved in a way that was consistent with the national interest.
Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to Minister Wong, representing the Treasurer. It's promising to hear that the government is modelling a gas export tax. Gas corporations will continue to make windfall wartime profits for months or even years as bombs continue to rain down in the Middle East. Ordinary people are paying the price, while gas companies profit off their pain. Polling today shows that 61% of Australians support taxing export gas. With the Greens, you have the numbers to pass a gas export tax of at least 25% this fortnight. Minister, are you ready to stare down the greedy gas corporations and make them finally pay their fair share?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Waters for her question, and I did observe the public statements from the Greens, and they have a consistent position on this. Obviously, the government's focus on tax is rolling our tax cuts for every taxpayer, which I note that those opposite opposed. We're obviously closely monitoring events in the Middle East, as I went to in my first answer. The principle of Australians deserving a fair return from natural resources they own is a sound one, and it is one that Labor in government has held to. In our first term, we did make changes to the petroleum resources rent tax so that offshore gas companies pay more tax sooner, increasing the number of entities paying tax, and also to encourage investment in our resource sector through the production tax credit for critical minerals. I would note that we are in a time of global instability, and as the first few questions of question time elicited, leaving aside any of the sort of political discussions, this is a major challenge for the country. So the government's immediate priority is fuel security, and we are focused on securing supply.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
The government has supported this illegal war, which has now led to a fuel crisis. The federal government could ease the fuel crisis by funding free public transport, as the IEA recommends. That would give cost of living relief and free up fuel supplies for farmers and regional areas. Will you work with the states to introduce free public transport to help families, farmers and fuel security?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
It is true that one of the measures I think that the International Energy Agency has spoken about is public transport, amongst other things. As you correctly note in your question, however, Senator, those are matters for the states and territories. In relation to coordination between state and federal governments, obviously the Prime Minister convened National Cabinet last week. It is true that a number of aspects of response to these challenges and the fuel constraints globally those responsibilities are shared between state and federal governments, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will continue to hold those negotiations and will seek to work cooperatively with the states.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. If this crisis has taught us anything, it's that we need to end our dependence on fossil fuels. However, your government has indicated that the electric vehicle fringe benefits tax exemption is on the chopping block in this year's budget. Given that we are in a fuel crisis, will you rule out making it harder for people to buy electric vehicles in the budget?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
I'm happy to respond. I would note that the SUP is about EVs and the primary was about the PRRT, but yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to answer as best as I can, Senator. Yeah, I think this government has made clear very clear the importance of transitioning to cleaner and more sustainable forms of energy. There is a climate argument for that. There is an economic argument for that, and I think, as is being demonstrated, there is a resilience argument to that transition. We also know, as you and I have discussed, I think in this chamber and elsewhere, Senator, we recognise that transitioning the economy is a big economic task. There are many levers and there are many aspects of this which are required. You've seen what we have done in terms of our investment in renewable energy, as well as in terms of electric vehicles.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. The war in the Middle East is a major shock to global energy markets. In response, the Albanese Labor government is taking action to make sure fuel gets to where it's needed, particularly focusing on regional petrol stations and agricultural and maritime businesses. Can the Minister outline what the government has done to ensure Australian households and businesses remain well supplied with fuel?
Good question,
Order. I remind senators on my left that I do need to hear the question. Minister Ayres. Minister Ayres.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Senator Grogan, for that question. Of course, the Albanese government is intervening to make sure that fuel gets to where it is needed and that we cushion Australians from the worst of the price shock. This is an international crisis, not a commercial opportunity or a partisan opportunity at Australians' expense. That's why we've released, as a government, made the necessary decision to release 762 million additional litres of petrol and diesel from our national stock holding, with the additional fuel squarely directed to farmers and regional communities. That's why we've temporarily lowered fuel standards, allowing an extra 100 million litres a month to be used here rather than exported. And just while I'm on the subject of that fuel, I was interested to see Mr Taylor on Saturday, who said Australia is exporting fuel because of regulation brought forward by him. I assume he means Mr Bowen, because of his emissions obsession. The thing about running a hyper-partisan campaign is it's probably good if you get the facts right. It's probably good if you get the facts right. Viva does not export fuel. Ampol's only exports are now redirected to Australia after this government made the sulphur change. Right? That is, this government made the change. Mr Taylor misrepresented the facts on Saturday when it was plainly obvious through the government's actions that we had made the difficult but necessary decision to do that. And if you're going to run a scare campaign, you might as well try and run an honest scare campaign rather than a dishonest scare campaign, which is what's been perpetrated by this lot and their fellow travellers.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Good to hear from Senator Ayres. The Albanese Labor government has said that consumers must not suffer from unfair fuel pricing because of this conflict in the Middle East. What is the government doing to protect Australian households and businesses from fuel price gouging?
Order. Order. Senator Ayres.
Well, I just thank Senator Grogan for that question as well. Of course, we're cracking down on petrol price gouging. So while the ACCC is allowing the major fuel suppliers to coordinate their activity to get fuel to the parts of the country and to businesses that are facing shortages, that doesn't mean that they can jointly agree on prices or share information about prices. In fact, we have doubled penalties, up to $100 million for false or misleading conduct and for cartel behaviour.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator McKim, if I sit the minister down, the obvious response from senators is not to continue to interject. Senator McKenzie, you have constantly interjected. Senator McKim, Minister Ayres, please resume.
Well, thank you. We are cracking down on price gouging, providing the ACCC with the right powers and amending their approach. They have opened an investigation, for example, into diesel availability in regional Australia. This is an opportunity and a necessity for Australians to work together to deliver the right outcome, in particular for our farmers and regional
Minister,
businesses.
the time for responding has expired. Order. Perhaps Senator Shoebridge and Senator McKenzie would like to step outside the chamber and continue your rude and disrespectful interjections somewhere else. Order. Order. Senator Wong. Order. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Some parts of the community have suggested that the government should prioritise drilling for oil as a response to this energy shock. Why has the government not chosen to take this approach?
Minister Ayres.
We've not chosen this approach because it would do nothing for Australian fuel security. I noticed Senator Canavan made an announcement just before the South Australian election. That went well. Thanks, Matt. I'm sure they said. Thanks, Matt. The truth is, just like the bogus Collinsville coal-fired power station, Senator Canavan is full of it on this question. Full of it. Because when he was in charge, he issued exploration licences for the Great Australian Bight, which achieved nothing but driving down the Liberal vote in South Australia, zero in fuel security terms. Equinor said, after they had given up their licence, that it was not commercially viable. Not commercially viable. Yet Senator Canavan runs this hoax of a campaign, which is fundamentally
Minister
dishonest.
Ayres, the time for answering has expired. Senator Faruqi. Order. Senators Ayres and Canavan. Senator Ayres, I have called Senator Faruqi. Senator
President,
Faruqi.
my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. On Eid morning, Prime Minister Albanese and Minister Burke attended Lakemba Mosque during Eid prayers. Muslims understandably expressed their frustration and anger at the Labour government's complicity and inaction on Israel's genocide in Gaza. Instead of acknowledging these sentiments, the Prime Minister left the mosque in a rush, ignored community criticism, and misled the media about why people were confronting him. On the religious festival of Eid, the Prime Minister indulged in far-right talking points to delegitimize people angry about his presence in the mosque and Labour's complicity in the genocide, linking them with extremism. Minister, why did the Prime Minister lie and mislead the media?
Senator Faruqi, that's out of order. Withdraw, please.
Why did the Prime Minister mislead the media?
Senator, you also need to withdraw. I appreciate that you've rephrased the question. Thank you for doing that, but you also need to withdraw.
Withdraw.
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong. And I do remind senators, just because you have a different point of view, you are to listen in silence. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the question. And what I would start by saying is that, first, Australians are understandably distressed by the violence, death, displacement in the Middle East, but that we, on this side of the chamber, believe that we gain nothing by shouting each other down. We gain nothing by turning up the temperature, as that question sought to. We gain nothing as a pluralist nation and again, I mean, there is an outrage machine that the Greens engage in because they want to raise the temperature. They want to raise the temperature. Now, you want to raise the temperature because you see political benefit in raising the temperature. We on this side we on this side want to do all that we can in a pluralist Australia, to enable people to come together and for people who disagree with each other to be able to engage respectfully. That is what we seek to do, and that is what the Prime Minister was seeking to do. Now, it was a visit by the Prime Minister for Eid. It was a visit at the invitation of the community. It was a visit that was welcome by many in the community, and yes, there were people who had differences of views. But overwhelmingly, it is a good thing for the Prime Minister of the country.
Senator Ayres?
I just asked that Senator Faruqi withdraw that. She's had to do it once already.
I didn't hear the comment, and I'm assuming it was Senator Shoebridge. Just a moment, Senator Shoebridge.
What do you want?
Please resume your
Just
seat.
assumed you.
Senator Ayres, I didn't hear the point of order, and I didn't hear. I heard your point of order. I didn't hear the senator. So no, I'm not asking you to repeat. Just name the senator.
Senator Faruqi.
Apologies, Senator Shoebridge. I had called you to order a few minutes before Senator Ayres jumped up, which is why I assumed it was you. I apologise for that. Senator Faruqi, withdraw the comment.
Oh God, you just don't want people to tell the truth.
I withdraw. Senator Faruqi,
I withdraw.
Senator Ayres, please resume your seat. Thank you, Senator Faruqi. And I will remind you, when I ask you to withdraw, a simple withdrawal and no other comment is what I require, and I appreciate that you've now done that. Minister Wong.
As I said, the Prime Minister was invited to the mosque for Eid. That is a good thing. It is a good thing to engage with the community, even if sometimes the conversations are difficult.
Senator Faruqi, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination commemorates the Sharpeville massacre in South Africa, where 69 anti-apartheid protesters were killed by police. 6 decades on, it is hard to escape the reality here in Australia of police crackdowns, arrests and silencing of protesters standing against Israel's genocide and apartheid. Minister, when will the government realise that assaulting, demonising and repressing anti-genocide, anti-apartheid protesters is racism?
Just a moment. Senator Faruqi, as you've seen, I've sought the advice of the clerk, and so your first question was very specific to a particular incident. You've now broadened that out to go further than that, so it's not well related to your first question, but I will invite the minister to answer it in whatever way she thinks fit. Senator Waters.
Point of order, President. I'll just refer to the fact that the minister was asked in her capacity as representing the Prime Minister, and so the scope is broad.
Thank you, Senator Waters, and you may have missed the point. I have sought the advice of the clerk, and I have taken the advice of the clerk, which is the generally accepted standard in this chamber, and it's certainly the standard that I adhere to, and I've invited the minister to respond in whatever way she thinks fits the question. Minister Wong.
Thank you. There are a number of aspects of that question. I think that where I would like to start is where I started with my primary, which is there is understandable distress in our country by what has occurred in Gaza. There is by the violence, death and displacement in the Middle East. But I again say we are a country, a pluralist nation, which has welcomed different races, different religions and views. We should be united by respect for each other's humanity and for each other's right to live in peace. Well, you expect respect, but you don't show me any. You demand it. I'm trying to answer the question. All right?
Senator Wong. Senator Ormond-Payne, come to order. I've called you to order 3 times. You are being disrespectful to me and this chamber. You will listen in silence or you can leave the chamber. Senator Ormond-Payne, you are not in a debate with me. Senator Ormond-Payne, I will name you. You are not in a debate with me and you are to listen in silence. That is my order. Minister Wong, please continue.
We on this side will always try to bring people together. We do not believe seeking to make people angrier is responsible.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Faruqi, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The government might try and de-link genocide and racism as much as they like, but that is a fact, and these questions are about genocide and racism, so they are not out of order. The Prime Minister's social media post acknowledging the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination does not even say the word racism. If you cannot name it, you cannot tackle it. Every day, racism rears its ugly head, and still this government refuses to take action to tackle systemic, institutional, structural racism.
Faruqi, the time
when
for
will the Prime Minister fund the national...
has expired. Senator Faruqi, I called you to order because your time had expired. I expect you to respect my authority in this chamber. Minister Wong.
The Australian Labor Party will always stand against racism. We do, every day, and we always will.
Come to order. Senator Faruqi, come to order. You've asked the question. It's my role as President to maintain order in this chamber, and when I ask you to come to order, I expect you to come to order. Senator Wong has completed her answer. Senator Duniam.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. On the 10th of March, Senator Wong told this Senate that there was, quote, not a fuel supply problem, just unusual demand behaviour. And on the 11th of March, you said exactly the same thing. Minister Bowen now calls it a national crisis. Minister, which is it? And will you apologise to Australians for the weeks of denial while the Bowsers ran dry?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Ayres.
Well, what this government has been very clear about since the commencement of hostilities in the Middle East is that Australia has, at a national level, the strongest fuel reserves that we have had for more than 15 years. That is the truth. Now, of course, that is not the same proposition. That is not the same proposition that supply is extended perfectly to every part of the Australian economy. And that is why the government has responded in the way that it has. And it's important not just to have those practical responses, appointment of the fuel coordinator, releasing of 20% of the minimum stockholding obligation, additional powers for the ACCC and providing direction to the ACCC so that their role doesn't get in the way of fuel retailers being able to cooperate to get supply to some of the places that I dealt with in my answer to Senator McKenzie. But it also requires all of us who are engaged in this effort here in parliamentary democracy to be clear with the Australian people about what is going on. And it is true that it is very important when these kinds of challenges come along to give Australians confidence that at the heart of this matter we have stronger fuel security than we have traditionally had. Because it is not right. It is not right to go around encouraging Australians to stockpile or purchase more fuel than they need. And there's some people over there who are doing precisely that.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Duniam, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, on what date was the government first advised that 6 shipments of vital fuel supply bound for Australia were cancelled?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Ayres.
I will provide more information on that question if I can. I can certainly tell you that that is something that has only recently become clear, and what we will see over the coming weeks and months, depending upon how long the crisis in the Middle East goes for, is 2 things happening. One is, up until recently, all of the ships that were coming to Australia were on target, on time. We will see, like we have just seen, a number of deferrals and a number of cancellations, 6 out of 81. And you'll also see the government undertaking the action that it has been undertaking in consultation with our partners in the region to make sure that we are swapping in fuel capacity when that is possible. That's why you have a minimum stockholding obligation,
Minister.
to provide resilience in precisely that circumstance.
Senator Duniam, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. The war in Iran began on the 28th of February 2026, that's 23 days ago. Minister, specifically, how many new fuel shipments have been contracted since the 28th of February this year?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Ayres.
Well, if I can provide anything in relation to that specific question, I will. We have been completely transparent about what fuel reserves are on hand, and it stands starkly in contrast to what the previous Liberal and National government did. The coalition closed refineries. We are keeping them open. The coalition stored emergency fuel on another continent. We are storing it here. The coalition talked about minimum stockholding obligations. We implemented them. The coalition talked about low-carbon liquid fuels. We are investing them. And the coalition, the Liberals and Nationals, I understand why they are so embarrassed, oversaw the closure of urea facilities. We are building a new one. That's what this government is doing, undertaking practical action in the national interest
Minister
every day of the week.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Videos posted of the incident involving the Prime Minister at Lakemba Mosque last Friday show, by my count, 20 people in the security team, including uniformed officers from New South Wales Police who took up a position inside. One Nation leader, Senator Hanson, remarked only 3 weeks ago that Lakemba wasn't safe for everyday Australians. Minister, if the Prime Minister organised a 20-person security detail in advance to provide security for the visit, doesn't that prove the Prime Minister believed Lakemba Mosque was not a safe place for him to visit?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Before I call the Minister, I'm going to remind those, particularly on my right, once again, Senator Roberts has the right to ask his question in silence. Minister Wong.
Well, it is telling that the 2 questions I get on Lakemba are from the Greens and One Nation, and perhaps the Greens political party could reflect on their polarisation of this debate. No, not particularly, but I think there is ethics in politics, Senator Faruqi. I think there's some ethics in politics. Senator, I'm sorry, I disagree with most of your question, most of what is included in your question. And I again go back to the answer I gave to Senator Faruqi recently. There are Australians who are rightly distressed by the conflict in Gaza, the loss of life, what we have seen. They are, that is a legitimate position for people to hold. But the way to deal with differences of views, and there are differences of views on this, is not to disengage, but neither is it to seek to turn up the temperature. Neither is it to try and make people angry, which is what we see from the corner here with the Greens. I would say to you, Senator, it is a good thing for the Prime Minister of the country to go to a mosque and to engage with Australian Muslims. That is a good thing. That is about our social cohesion. That is about recognising that we have differences, different faiths in a pluralist society, and we can respect and celebrate all faiths. So what I say to you is we should, as politicians, work to inculcate a society, work to protect a society where we can have differences of views and difference of opinion without anger and without division, and that is what we will work for.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
My question, thank you, Minister. My question was about whether or not the Prime Minister felt safe. On the 4th of March, the Albanese government listed Hizb ut-Tahrir as a prohibited hate organisation. Social media has already identified at least one of those displaying violent behaviour to be a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir based on his social media posts. Minister, will your government arrest anyone associated with Hizb ut-Tahrir who acted violently towards the Prime Minister and toward other Muslims last Friday?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Wong.
2 points, Senator. The first is there is a separation of powers and politicians don't arrest people. But the second point, a more important one, you voted against the legislation under which Hizb ut-Tahrir was prescribed. So this is so typical of one nation. It is all complaint, but when there is a solution, you stand in the way of it. So we proudly put forward legislation which increased the capacity of governments to deal with groups that were engaging in hatred. You voted against that, and now you complain about it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. The Prime Minister has never needed a 20-person security detail to attend a Christian church in his time as Prime Minister, nor to attend a meeting of everyday Australians. Is it true, Minister, that social cohesion—
Order.
Is it—
Order. Order. Order.
Is it true, Minister, that social cohesion in the hands of the Albanese government simply means surrendering to radical Islam?
Order. Order. Minister Wong.
Well, I do hope that members of the Liberal Party listen to that question and recognise that the result in South Australia, the success of that party over there, is fuelled by your preferences.
Correct.
That you are delivering them votes and seats in South Australia. And, you know, I hope you think about that.
Order.
I hope you think about that.
Order.
I hope you think about that. I hope you think about the fact that the party that is now cannibalising you, you are fuelling their support. You are fueling their support.
Order.
Now, what are—
Order. Order. I would ask all senators please refrain from 1, interjecting, and 2, pointing across the chamber. Minister Wong.
You use the phrase everyday Australians. Well, there are everyday Australians come from all walks of life, all faiths, all backgrounds. That's what we believe. Everyday Australians come as Hindus, as Sikhs, as Muslims, as Christians, as members of the Jewish community.
The time for answering has expired. I just advise the Senate that Senator Babet has given his question to Senator Whitten.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Minister, Australia sadly imports about 90% of its fuel needs. Our fuel storage levels are the lowest in the developed world, in breach of the International Energy Agency's requirement that members must hold 90 days of net oil imports onshore. 6 fuel shipments from Asia to Australia were recently cancelled or deferred. We're not receiving the oil to support our domestic demands. Minister, you've been in government for 4 years now. Do you acknowledge that you should have been better prepared for this oil shock?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Ayres.
Well, President, thanks, Senator Whitten, for that question. It is the job of government to make sure that Australia is more resilient in a period in our history where there is no room for complacency about supply chain challenges. That is the job of the government. And as I've indicated in relation to previous questions over the last few weeks, we have undertaken that work earnestly. We have delivered an outcome where that minimum stockholding obligation is our shock absorber, but it is not the end of the story. It is not the end of the story. And we will continue to be held accountable for those questions, as we should. But I do say all of us have a responsibility to be straightforward about the questions in relation to our energy security. And it is not the case that Australia has reserves of crude oil that could be economically extracted. That is not the case. And making that argument is utterly mischievous. Whether it's you doing it, Senator, through the chair, or Senator Canavan, or others making that argument. Because it is not a practical solution. In fact, what it would do is make prices unacceptably high on a long-term basis for Australians. That would be the result. Higher prices, less fuel security would be the result of that. It's imported politics. It's imported politics.
Time. Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Whitten, first supplementary.
Minister, if this fuel crisis extends and worsens, do you hold the power necessary to force rationing of fuel on the Australian people?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Ayres.
Well, President, the government has set out the proposed course of action I should say to my friends in the gallery, the sound of little kids in this place is always very welcome. It's always very welcome, and really, if that family, I want them to feel welcome in this place, and I think we all do. I think we all do. Well, I wouldn't describe it as running down the clock, Senator. Senator Farrell's not here. I meant it. And I think we all did. We are approaching the task of delivering fuel security with all the earnestness that Australians would expect, with all of the diligence. And we have undertaken that work in strong contrast to the miserable record of those that came before us, who diminished Australia's fuel security, who made our economic resilience weaker, and as a consequence made Australia poorer.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Whitten, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, if this fuel crisis continues and our emergency supplies keep dropping, can you guarantee Australians will not run out of fuel?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Ayres.
Well, what I can guarantee is that because our fuel reserve is here in Australia, and that actions like what was undertaken last week, where a portion of the minimum stockholding obligation was released in order to deal with some of those undersupply issues, particularly with independent retailers who have traditionally bought fuel on the spot market, in order to make sure that fuel got to those parts of Australia. That kind of action, if Mr Taylor was still the Energy Minister, would not be open to the government, because he had Australia's minimum stockholding obligation stored somewhere in Texas, El Paso, Dallas, I don't know where. It was a magical fairy dust allocation.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Patterson.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. How is the Albanese government ensuring that Australian farmers and producers will continue to be able to feed Australians when the sector is ringing alarm bells of a looming fertiliser shortage?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Senator, I spoke earlier in this question time about what the action we are taking in relation to the Middle East crisis. You are correct that fertiliser is one of the supply chains that is affected. It is not the only one, obviously. I know what I can say to you is that Minister Collins has been engaging closely on this. We understand the importance of ensuring farmers continue to produce our food and fibre, and that obviously freight and supply chains remain critical. I'm advised that Australia utilises lower levels of fertiliser than other comparable countries, so we are already efficient users. Much of the input products for the I'm just giving you the advice I've been provided with. I'm happy to. If you don't like it, I'm happy to pass it on. Much of the input products for the upcoming planting season, including the majority of fertiliser required, are already on the water or in the country. Obviously, if the conflict does continue, this supply chain, along with others, will come under more pressure, and the government will continue to work, including with industry, on seeking to ensure our resilience in such a circumstance.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, as fertiliser shortages loom in Australia and the sector is warning us there may be no domestic production, what plan does the Albanese government have to urgently secure urea for our growers and farmers?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
This is one of the issues that was the subject of discussion in a number of more than one of my engagements. Obviously, this is one of the areas that globally is under pressure. I think at some 65% of fertiliser-grade urea is sourced from the Middle East, and that currently we are seeing price volatility, as would be expected. Government will keep working to secure supplies, and we obviously recognise this is a global challenge that we are working together to meet.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. How will the Albanese government intervene to secure urea to ensure there is no threat to meat and crop production, as farmers are told fertiliser orders are unlikely to be delivered because of the Middle East conflict?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
I understand that ministers, that the National Farmers Federation and fertiliser industry representatives.
Order. Order. Or interjections across the chamber are disorderly. If you want to have a conversation, go outside. Minister Wong, please continue.
I understand the National Farmers Federation and the fertiliser and industry representatives were part of the meeting that Minister Ayres has spoken about earlier this month. We will continue to engage with the industry. Obviously, one of the priorities in the near term, although not immediate, will be to seek to restart domestic urea production. And obviously, Senator Ayres is engaged on that issue, particularly in relation to the Western Australian facility. And I ask that further questions be placed on notice. Sorry, I briefly forgot whether or not we were at 4 or